Hello, pen people. I've been wanting to talk to you about ink bottles, so I'm over here at my writing desk, and I've got a few ink bottles out. Ooh, that's scary. You knock over ink bottles when you swing your arms around like that. And that's a good segue into this item that came and the reason why I am going to be talking to you about ink bottles. This is the TWSBI Ball. It's made and it shows you that depending on where you set the ball, it will tip your ink bottle at a different angle, the lowest one being 11 degrees and the highest at 45. You'll see that when we show you that there are different flats on the sides of it, made out of glass. I ordered mine directly from TWSBI and it came yesterday. And we'll slide the top off here. It's packaged nicely in this dense foam, and here it is. Slightly off-white, otherwise clear glass. Very smooth, very heavy, no sharp edges anywhere, and a beautiful etch of the TWSBI logo right there. And as said on the box, you can see that there are these flats. And it's a little hard to see on the camera. There you go. There's a flat there, another one there, another one there, and another one there. And the closer it is, the farther away from the bottom it is, the more it's going to tip the bottle down. So this is the 11 degree setting, and then you roll it and it goes higher and lower depending on where you set it. And what you can do with that, of course, is, as they show in the ads, you use these large TWSBI bottles. You set it in there, and if you need to get a full fill because the ink is sitting way down at the bottom, you tip it at the angle that is most useful to you to fill up your pen, so you can get your pen deeply enough into the ink and then draw it out. Now, TWSBI bottles also have an ink miser type of insert in them, so I don't know how necessary the ball is, but the point and the reason I got it, like I just knocked that bottle over. To me, it's really nice to have something sturdy to set your ink bottles into and they won't get knocked over. So that's part of the reason why I got it. And to that end, I kind of wish it had a flat on the bottom so that you could stand bottles straight up in it, because you can't now. It's tippy and roly-poly. I mean, it won't like roll like a ball away from you because it has those flats and it'll stop like that. But even though the utility in a TWSBI bottle, because it has that insert, isn't as great as it could be, it is definitely useful in other types of bottles. So, for example, this large Pen BBS bottle that's octagonal, it seems big, it doesn't look like it would fit, but it does. So you can use it to fill your Pen BBS. How about Straits pens bottles that look like the bottles from Bung Box ages ago? It too. This one always kind of scares me because it seems like it's so tippy. I mean, it's not really, but it seems like it is just because it has that narrow foot and the weight is up high. It's not all that tippy, but if you're worried about it and the ink level's low enough, you can put it inside the ball and use it to fill. So I'm going to be showing you a few bottles that will fit into this, and also a few bottles that I just think are cool. So it will fit Rohrer and Klinger bottles, the sketch type or the regular ones. You can use it, the TWSBI ball for them. You can use them for Quizzy or KWZ inks. Will go in there just fine. So that's a lot of round bottles. Diatramentis is another one that will fit in there. And Private Reserve will fit down in there, which is really nice, because they kind of freak me out. They have these great big openings, and if you need to tip it a little bit, this is a more secure way to hold it instead of trying to hold it in your hand and filling the pen, because you usually need two hands to fill a fountain pen. Some square bottles will also fit in here, including your Noodler's bottles will fit down in there. And since this one has ink level low enough, I can show you how this works. You can take off the lid either while it's sitting in there or not, but you can see the ink level in there, and you can set it at the right angle so that it brings the ink close enough and you have enough ink depth to stick your pen all the way in and get a complete fill. So the ink ball will be useful for your Noodler's inks, whether it's the large bottle or the small bottles. Which include, and similar bottles, of course, are the Monteverde little square bottles. They too can fit down inside there. The and they'll even hold these larger bottles like these Noodlers 4.5. Although why you would need to, I don't know, because they're eyedropper bottles. And for this, on the same vein, I've got these inks from India that are in eyedroppers. They'll fit in there, but there's no real point with those. So that is the TWSBI Ball. It'll be a fun little accessory on my desk, and a way to hold inks securely without much worry. Now, let me just show you a few bottles that, like the TWSBI, I mean, because it has that insert, it may not necessarily, it has a mechanism that would make something like the Ball unnecessary. So fairly ubiquitous are these Mont Blanc bottles, and the way they work is that this is the reservoir of ink, and when it starts to get low, you can tip it and fill this forward part so you can still get a fill from your pen. It's not terribly deep though, so your mileage may vary, but at least that's ostensibly one of the reasons for the shape that it is. And some people call these a shoe bottle. It's kind of cool. One of the mechanisms I really enjoy are these bottles that have an upper reservoir closed off with a glass ball. And the way this works, like this bottle from Tools to Live By, is you tip it and it fills that upper reservoir, and then the glass ball falls down and it seals off this portion here. You take the cap off and fill your pen directly from up here, not having to access all of the ink that's down in here. And if the ink starts getting low down here, you can just, again, tip it and fill that up. And then if you want to release the ink up here, you just tip it at an angle a little bit and it will drain back out. And now it's all back down in here. By the way, this ink it comes from the Taiwanese company Tools to Live By, but the ink itself is made by KWZ, so it's an iron gall, and it's a beautiful, beautiful green ink. The bottle that those are based on is actually a very old bottle by Watermen from like a century or so ago. But Ackermann also makes them, and this is the faceted, smaller bottle that Ackermann makes. Again, it has that upper reservoir. You tip it, it fills, and this upper section is full of ink now. And this in the inimitable SBRE Brown, which is a great brown shading ink if any of you are interested. But they also make a larger bottle. This is the Dutch Masters bottle in one of my favorite red inks. This is Steenrode, which is a beautiful dark red. And again, it has that upper reservoir that fills, and there's a glass ball to seal off the chamber, and you can use this, just uncap it and use it to fill your pen. Other really interesting bottles that aren't typically all that common. I mean, this is probably one of the least common bottles out there. This is the Krishna Bottle that was a limited release. I don't know how many of them are out there in the wild, but it is a cute and very cool bottle. This is the filling. This is where you fill the pen, and you can tip it to fill it or lower the amount that's in here. It's really kind of a neat bottle, and I like how it sits. Looks like a bug almost. Very cool bottle. Thank you, Dave, my friend who got that one for me. Another beautiful bottle that I find that is not typically, not terribly common, but it is, Diamine's a big company. They make a lot of inks. This is the Blue Series inks from the 2019 Inkvent that they released the following year. And I'm so glad they did, because this is a gorgeous bottle and the inks are fantastic. And I wonder what they're going to do with the Red Series, which is the Inkvent from 2021. If they release it later this year, if they're going to use this same bottle or not. I hope they do, because it's a really cool bottle. Or if they have another one that's just as cool, that would be great. Some more run-of-the-mill bottles that are out there that all of you have or may have seen. You've got the Snail-Shaped Bottles from Colorverse. These are great bottles, great inks as well. I showed you this one from Straits Pens, which is just fantastic. I wanted to get a Bung Box inks back when they made them in these bottles, but they stopped doing that and they sold them in the Sailor bottles, which are pretty underwhelming. But then Straits Pens started selling their inks in this, and so if you want to get one of these bottles, that's the place to get them. Some really, some nice looking bottles. That you have the Graf von Faber-Castell bottles, which are these heavy glass bottles. Look almost like a perfume bottle. Very beautiful, wonderful bottles. Similar to that are the Pelican Edelstein bottles, which not as ornate, but also very nice looking bottles with a heavy glass bottom. Kind of shallow. When they start getting low, you have a hard time filling your pen. Similar to that is the Cross bottle, which is another large rectangular bottle. Beautiful ink though. The square cap, it's just kind of differentiating itself from others. Great inks though. Speaking of square bottles that aren't terribly useful, this is probably the least useful bottle out there. I mean, it has this interesting feature where it's got a pen rest molded into the glass there. See if the camera will focus on that better. And it's kind of a hollow in there, and you can set your pen there so it won't roll away while you're using it. But that made more sense, I think, back in the dip pen day. And these are so shallow that, I think this is a brush pen. That doesn't make much sense here. We'll use this dip pen. When this gets low on ink, you can see that the nib can't go much deeper than that in there, and you're not going to be able to get a full pen fill, not very easily. And so this is one of those bottles that you're going to have to tip it a lot, or you're just going to have to fill the pen using a syringe or something. Not a very useful bottle. Cool looking, but not very useful. Another useful bottle are the Lamy bottles. Those of you who've seen these, they have the blotter paper, which is very useful. You can use it to blot your nib after filling your pen. You take the, of course, you stick it down in there and fill it up. And now it looks like a shallow bottle, which would be kind of lame like the Gerabon bottle, but it isn't. It has a deeper well that comes all the way down to here that you can stick the pen way down in there and pull ink from the bottle for a long time before you're not able to anymore. And you can, if you force it, you can pop this open, and you can see how deep the bottle goes, and it allows you to dip your pen in deeply and pull ink from the bottle. Of course, you don't want to leave this lying around like that because that's not great. But this roll of blotter paper is in there. It's not a small-sized roll either. And there you go. Useful bottle. Now, some of the old staid and tried and true type bottle designs are these Watermen and Pelican bottles. Decent, useful bottles, and when they do start to run a little bit low, on the same kind of theory as the TWSBI Ball, they have flats on the side, and so you can tip the bottle on its side and fill it that way. It sits fairly securely like that. It's not going to fall over. I mean, it could if you knock it, but that's, everything won't fall over if you knock it hard enough. And these Pelican bottles will do the same thing. You can tip them on their sides and fill the pen that way. I don't feel really, always really great doing that because you can knock them over, but that's just me, and I'm clumsy. As you saw, because I almost knocked this bottle off onto the floor, which would have been terrible. And so kind of moving into the large bulk ink purchase type bottles, this is Blue Black by Pilot. You can buy it in these large 350 milliliter bottles, which is, huge. It's a great ink, and you can see I've used quite a bit of it. But you can buy these, and they have a nice filler. You open these up and you decant them into something else, and that is what is inside this TWSBI bottle here. And I love these TWSBI bottles. Sorry, kind of a step away from the bulk bottles. I forgot to mention these. TWSBI makes nice glass, and these are really nice too. They have a nice etch on the bottom, and these faceted sides are beautiful and crisp. And then they have the filler neck mechanism where if you take the section off of your piston filling TWSBI pens, you can pull ink from just by inserting it onto here instead of opening the whole bottle. But if you do open the whole bottle, they have one of those Ink Miser plastic inserts that will help you fill your pen as well. And it's that straw right there is what makes that ink filling mechanism on the top work. If you have, as I was showed earlier, one of these large TWSBI bottles of ink, the one that was ostensibly designed for, the ball was designed for, you can interchange these caps with these caps, and you can use these filler mechanisms on these large TWSBI bottles, which is really pretty cool. But anyway, getting back to the large bottles, I mentioned this one because I poured this ink into here. Now, there are other bottles like that out there. Noodler's also sells large amounts of ink in these 16-ounce bottles. This is Kiowa Pecan, which is my favorite brown ink, and it's obviously quite large. And you can use it to decant into your other bottles. I had a small square bottle like this of Kiowa Pecan that I used up. And what I did is I filled it up and I gave it to someone who wanted some of the ink, and so I have quite a bit of my own. And anyway, and then there are, of course, larger vintage bottles like this old script bottle. And this one is currently filled right now with some Daytone ink, because Daytone also sold, or does sell, depending on availability, 350 ounce, 350 milliliter bottles of their ink, and that's what's in here right now. Although the Daytone bottles are plastic and they're not the best for storing ink in. So I put them in that nice old script bottle. And speaking of script bottles, here's a vintage bottle that I understand Schaefer will be coming back with, or they have already released it. And it has an interesting little well there. So if you tip the bottle to the side, this little pocket of glass right there fills up with ink, and you can fill the pen that way. It's kind of a neat design. I'll see if I can open the cap. It doesn't always want to cooperate because it's old and it's steel. There we go. There's the gasket. And you can see in there, there's that like shelf in there that holds ink so that you can fill it up. Fill up your pens, and even when the bottle starts to run a little bit low. All right, get that lid back on there. And speaking of vintage bottles, this is a very old ink bottle. It was found at an old dig site of some sort. I'm not sure where or what, but you can see that it's been in the ground for some time. But this is an old ink bottle. It would have been sealed with a cork. And to wrap all of this up, I love ink bottles. They're really kind of cool. But let me show you my favorite bottles. These are cathedral bottles. Carter's ink. It says, I don't know if you can see that there, Carter's, C-A-R-T-E-R, Carter. These beautiful cobalt blue. This was a large quart bottle like that Schaefer script bottle I just showed you. A very large bottle that would have been used to fill other ink wells and such. And then these are smaller bottles also by Carter's. Beautiful blue one, a red one. Love the color on it. They sit here in my window and catch the sun. And then this beautiful green. I love that color. These just sit in my window and give me pleasure that way. And vintage bottles are beautiful. New bottles are beautiful. If you like them, collect them. You can pick up old bottles like this. I got these on eBay. I don't know how many are out there, and I'm sure the price will continue to go up on them, but they're beautiful and they're fun to have around. Anyway, talk to you later.